morning. You know, there are all kinds of moms. There's biological moms, stepmoms, single moms, adoptive moms, foster moms, mentor, spiritual moms, and there are all kinds. And today we honor the moms. When we come together to worship, the first thing we always honor, and the main thing we honor, is God. That's what we do every Sunday. We also enjoy doing that together in singing and praying and speaking and in many different ways. And then today we do want to honor motherhood. It's the oldest occupation in the world. I mean, there wouldn't be any of us here without a mom. And 102 years ago, Woodrow Wilson dedicated this to a national holiday. But before that, the first Mother's Day was actually in a church. And I think that's an important thing to do, to honor moms. And it sets the tone. And I know that I listened to a mom give advice to a pastor once, and he asked her, do you have any suggestions for Mother's Day sermon? And she said, yes, I have 3. Be sincere, be short, and be seated. So I'm going to try to follow that today. Being a mom is not easy. It is a difficult thing. It is very hard to do what God has called us to do. I heard there was a mom pushing a cart through Walmart, and her kid was in the cart, and a 3-year-old just screaming. I mean, just continual crying. And the whole time, she kept saying things like this: "It will be all right, Ellen. It's almost time to go home, Ellen. Now calm down, Ellen." And she went to the checkout line, and the lady at the checkout line said, Miss Ellen, she said, your little Ellen is going to be okay, and you've been very patient today. And the lady said, you don't understand, lady, my name is Ellen. There was an elementary science teacher that was studying magnets for her class. And they were studying how metal objects are attracted to objects. In the end of the semester, the teacher put on an exam question. It has 6 letters and starts with M. What is it? Over half the children wrote, and picks up things, wrote mother. There's a lot of work goes into being a mom. But it's important that we honor mothers. In Ephesians 6, verses 2 through 3, it says, honor your father and your mother, which is the first commandment with the promise, so that it might go well with you and that you might enjoy a long life on the earth. And so this is the only commandment that has a promise with it. And this idea that you should, it's a commandment to honor your parents, to honor your mother, not just on Mother's Day, but always. Why do you think that God made that as a commandment? There's a few reasons. It might be because every parent is flawed, and some people might say, well, you don't know, my mom did this and this and this. Listen, nobody's perfect, and God is reminding of that, and it's very hard to be a mom. I saw this picture on Facebook, and the next slide has had this picture. It says, the caption was a plant, and it says, I'm not dead, this is the way I look. And then above it, the mother has said, same for me, plant, same. Maybe you feel like that. This is just the way it is. It's not easy. But, it's absolutely true. None of us would be alive without our mothers. Let me think of it this way. Stand up right now if a mother went through labor for you. Stand up if a mother went through labor for you. That is everybody. Okay, you may be seated. You think about it. We should honor our parents. We wouldn't be here without them. And sometimes you think this way: God chose their DNA to make you. There's no such thing, by the way, as an accident with children. Every human being is created for a purpose. There might be an accident for the parents. They might feel like it was an accident, but it was not. And there was a plan. In Psalm 139, verse 13, it says, God created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, and I know that full well. So God has used moms to bring us all here today. There's not a person here that hadn't been brought here through a mom. And today we remember our moms, and I want to look at how you honor moms. How do we honor our moms today? Now, if you're a good mother, which I know that all y'all are, and I've asked moms this week, I've interviewed a bunch of them and said, now, what would you like for Mother's Day? And most mothers, the only thing they want is for the kids to be healthy, happy, fulfilled, moving forward. You don't want anything specific for you, although we ought to get something for you. You know, we visited my son yesterday. His wife graduated with a graduate degree from the University of North Carolina, and he was showing me his church that he's working in as youth pastor, and it was really, really nice. And one of the things I noticed that was in the men's bathroom, they had Mother's Day cards for dads or husbands who forgot Mother's Day. Brilliant. Yeah. So I want to think today, how do we honor moms at different ages of our lives? At different ages. So what should children do to honor their parents? I mean, how does a child honor their mother? Let me tell you, obey them. Okay? Obey them. Ephesians 6:1 says this, children, what? Obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. You see, young people, children, need to learn to honor authority and need to differentiate between position and person. And we've forgotten that in our culture today. You see, the person may be a jerk, but you honor them because of their position. And you need to learn about authority. Every child needs to learn about authority. What happens to a kid who learns not to obey authority? Well, they're going to go out and try to get a job, but they're not going to hold down that job for very long because they have never learned how to obey when somebody tells them to do something. And they're going to disrespect them. And so for a child, you know, one of your tasks to honor your mother, to love your mother, obey them. Okay? Second, how does a teenager honor their mother? Now, in the time that these texts were written, there were no teenagers. You went from basically 12 and 13 to adulthood. But today we have a huge gap between children and adults. And part of that gap is teenagers. How do teenagers honor their mother? Well, there could be several ways, and it definitely is obeying is one of them, but I think the main one is respect them. There's something about being a teenager that all of a sudden you realize that your parents aren't perfect. And sometimes you become cynical. I know none of y'all's your kids have ever done that. You're teenagers, but teenagers do. They disrespect sometimes their parents. Leviticus 19:3 says this, each of you must respect your mother and father. You must observe my Sabbaths. I am the Lord your God. This idea of respecting your parents is very important. For you who are teenagers, might be here today or listening, it is unfair for you to be more kind and considerate with your friends than with your mom. I've seen boys who went out and bought big gifts for their girlfriend and forgot Mom's Day completely. Not a good idea. If you treated your friends like you treat your mom, you wouldn't have friends. And if you're upset by that, okay, that's all right. Part of my job is to make you upset sometimes. You know, your mom deserves better, and we need to respect them. Hebrews 12:9 says this, moreover, we have all had human fathers who disciplined us and mothers who disciplined us, and we respected them for it. How much more should we submit to the Father of spirits and live? You know, to understand that your parents are not perfect. You know, as you grow older, you're going to find out my dad is not the best whatever, or my mom is not the best whatever. You accept that. You forgive them and move on and realize, you know, you're not perfect either. And so this is part of the task of being a teenager, is respecting your parents. All right, what about a young adult? What about young adulthood? What is the primary task? And again, most mothers, if you ask them what you want their young adult to do, then they would say, I want them to be successful. They don't have to do anything for me. But I do think it's important that we honor our parents. And one of the ways to do that as a young adult is to listen to them. We get so busy with our lives that we never take time to really listen to people and to pay attention to them. And you might think, well, my mom made a lot of mistakes and she's done this wrong and this wrong. Listen, you have not been perfect either. And you might say, well, I didn't choose my parents. Well, let's tell you the truth. They didn't choose you either. They didn't know how you were going to turn out. So don't judge them so much. Proverbs 13:1 says, a wise son heeds his father or his mother's instruction, but a mocker does not respond to rebukes. You know, to listen to your parents' advice. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. And as I've experienced life as a pastor, counseling with parents and families, I've found out that even the most dysfunctional parents that are a mess, often when it comes to their kids, give good advice. They just do. And so you ought to listen to your parents. Proverbs 23:22 says, listen to your father who gave you life, your mother who gave you life too. And do not despise your mother when she is old. One of the things you might want to think about doing is when your parents are older, and tell them what's going on in your life. You know, they don't know, and you might think, oh, it's boring. They don't want to hear what's going on with me. Yes, they do. Tell them. Talk to them. And listen to them. Ask them questions. Proverbs 6:22-23 says, when you walk, they will guide you. When you sleep, they will watch over you. When you awake, they will speak to you. For this command is a lamp, this teaching is a light, and correction and instructions are the way to life. And so as a young adult, listen to your parents. You can still learn a lot from them. What about as an adult? Let's say that you've made it through young adulthood, which I'm not exactly sure how long it lasts. I mean, I guess we're all young adults at heart, aren't we? But there's a time when we're just adults. How do we honor our mother and our father, but especially our mothers today? How do we honor them? I think in two ways. Two ways. First off, by appreciating them. But appreciating their effort. I mean, you think about how important that is, that you show appreciation for what they have done in your life. Their lives would have been easier, by the way, probably without you around. They put a lot of effort in you. There's these big trees in California, the redwoods, and on good years, they have these, if you cut open a redwood, they have rings. Every year there's a ring. And if it's a good year with a lot of water, the rings are thick between the rings. But if it's a rough year for the tree, they're very thin rings. And so if you was to see a dead redwood tree and lived a long time, and you can count the rings and see how many years it's lived, and you could see which years were difficult and which were hard and which were easy. And I think in a lot of parents' lives, you can count the rings by looking how the hair turns white. You know, think about what you've done in your life that caused your parents' hair to turn white, your mom's hair maybe even to fall out. I mean, depending on what you've done. Some of us have done things that it made it difficult. And they had to put up with us when we made some mistakes and did some things that we shouldn't have done. And yet they were there for us. And appreciate, there's a Proverbs 23:25 says, may your father and mother rejoice. May she gave you birth, who gave you birth be joyful. And they get joy by you appreciating. I mean, not only just for the patience and the love, but even the financial issue. I mean, it costs a lot of money to raise a kid. I read a statistic yesterday. It said the average kid cost a parent in America $240,000 to raise them to the age of 18. $240,000. And I'm not counting about what we spend on them after 18, which might be considerable. But that's a lot of money. You think about what they have given us, what they put on us, braces, school, clothes, all the things that we needed, a car, for some of us, several cars. The definition of a parent is a person who has photos where they used to have money in their wallet. And your mom often is generous beyond belief, really. Somebody gave me a math question that said, if you have 9 people at a table and you have an apple pie that's cut into 8 pieces, how much does each person get? Well, they all get a whole piece because mom don't want any pie. Why is that? Because she gives to others. Because you need to appreciate that. Appreciate that. Second thing, as an adult, you do for your parents, provide for them. This is the natural order of life. They provided for you when you were a kid. You provide for them when they're a senior adult. Every other nation in the world gives great respect for senior adults, parents. It's true in the Middle East. It's true in Asian countries. It's true in Africa. Almost every other culture in the world does a better job than our culture. In our culture, it seems like once seniors maybe don't have enough money or make enough money, they're looked on, and the job world is out of place. And then their closest friends have passed away, and then their family is not there for them like they should be. And so you should provide for them. 1 Timothy 5, 2-4 says this, older women as mothers and younger women as sisters, we should relate with them with absolute purity. Give proper recognition to those widows who are really in need. But if a widow has children or grandchildren, they should learn first to put their religion into practice by caring for their own family and repairing their parents and grandparents, for this is pleasing to God. And this is very direct. Paul says to Timothy, anyone who does not provide for their relatives, and especially their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. So that's pretty direct. And if you have a woman who never had the opportunity to have children, and her husband dies, and her family is not there, whose responsible is it to take care of that woman? It's our responsibility. It's the church's. We're supposed to step in and be there for them and help them and come along them. It's just the way that the Bible teaches, the way it's supposed to work. Now, I want to say one thing, because as I go through a message like this, there's a lot of different bases. This is a complex things that we could look at, but I want to talk for just a minute for those whose parents have hurt them. It happens. What does God expect you to do if you were hurt by your parents? Some people have been abused by their parents, treated badly. And the Bible doesn't say you should deny it or repress it or excuse it or ignore it or treat it like it was not important. You shouldn't fake it. You have to face it. You can get on with your life. And if you have something that's carrying around with you because they hurt you, they weren't there for you, they didn't do, you got to talk it out. Talk it out with God. And if they're still living, I pray that you can work up the courage to talk to them in person. And do it in a way that's not condescending or attacking. Maybe say something like this: Mom or Dad, I want to be free to honor the good that you did in my life. But I can't until we deal some of the pain and talk about some of the pain that I feel and still feel and come to some kind of resolution so we can forge a new relationship as mom and son or mom and dad. I want to face these issues before it's too late. I think that would be a very positive thing to do. And if you can't do this because maybe your parents won't listen or you're just not able to, or maybe they've passed away, if you can find a Christian mentor or counselor and deal with these issues, you need to get that off your chest so you can move on with your life, because you don't want to pass on this pain to others. And it's just important that you show love to your mom and dad and your mother. You know, if you look in the Bible, Jesus loved his mother. We're supposed to follow our Heavenly Father, and he sent his son Jesus to show us how to live. And Jesus loved his mother very much. In fact, he said 7 words at the end of his life when he was on the cross. And one of the 7 words is in John 19, beginning in verse 26. Jesus says, when Jesus saw his mom, his mother there, and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby, John, he said to his mom, "Woman, here is your son." Okay. And son, here is your mother. And the disciple said, "Here is your mother." And from that time on, this disciple took her into his home. So John took care of Jesus' mother because Jesus set that up. And we should be that kind of spirit within our understanding of what it means to be following God. And so we honor mothers. We look to them, and we're thankful for what they've done in our lives. And I pray that would be part of your day. I'm sorry we didn't have cards in the bathroom for you guys. But these words are all true from God's Word. I pray that at each stage of our lives, wherever you are today, you will honor the moms. That's what God wants us to do.